thoughts and opinions expressed during this or any broadcast belong solely to our guests or our hosts. These broadcasts do not represent or reflect the views of their employers, sponsors, or affiliated organizations.
Get ready to flip your perspective on education. Welcome to the Flipboard EDU podcast, where every story is a plus. Join us as we explore innovative ideas, share stories, and discover the power of collaboration in the world of education.
We dive deep into the latest trends, strategies, and resources to enhance teaching and learning. From EdTech tools to classroom management tips, we've got you covered. Let's collaborate, communicate, and educate with the best educators in the world right here on the Flipboard EDU podcast with your favorite coach, Coach Jeffery.
In this episode of the Flipboard EDU podcast, Coach Jeffery sits down with Stephanie Filardo, an expert in curriculum development and special education. Stephanie shares her extensive experience in the classroom and her passion for making all students feel like they belong, especially in the subject of math. They dive into an important topic that isn't often discussed, the humanity of teachers and students in schools, from discussing the importance of restroom access and policies to creating inclusive environments for students with unique needs. Stephanie and Coach Jeffery tackle these issues with openness and authenticity. Whether you're an educator, administrator, or just someone interested in the intersection of education and empathy, this episode has valuable insights for you. Don't miss the conversation about practical ways to support students' personal needs while maintaining a safe school environment, and learn how you can be a more approachable and compassionate figure in the educational field. So like we always do about this time, let's collaborate, communicate, and educate with the best educators in the world right here on the Flipboard EDU podcast.
Your favorite coach, Coach Jeffery. I have another amazing guest with an amazing topic we'll be talking about today, Miss Stephanie Filardo. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Stephanie, tell the listening audience about yourself.
Okay, we'll do the short version. I have spent a lot of my adult career in classrooms working with students, but also sometimes working with teachers. I am certified for elementary, middle school math, middle school science, high school math, K-12 special education. My master's is in special education because I recognized I really fell in love with curriculum development. And so now I work at Amplify on the K-5 math curriculum, really working to build the future of math and help kids know that everybody is a math person.
Yeah, that's great. I remember your last Twitter post in October of 2023 when you showed us that y'all were getting ready to release that. And so, yeah, you guys are doing really good.
Yeah, this is, again, not what the topic is, but that just launched. We're in beta right now. And so it's really cool being able to see things that I made that. I could do so many of these cool things, but I didn't have the time. And so now I get paid to do what I used to do for fun for free before, which is it's really cool and exciting to be able to do.
Excellent. So we're not here to talk about jobs. We're here to talk about humanness. I don't know if we want to call it social emotional wellness, but this is more of a frank topic for awareness. Do you want to tell a story how this topic arose?
Oh man, this topic has come up in many ways, and we just keep coming back to it. And it's this reality of, as teachers, we want to be treated as human beings. I have the same passing period for a bathroom break as the students do. And just as an adult, I want to be able to go to the bathroom when I want to. That's the part I think that does connect to my current job, is that my bathroom is right over there and it's all mine, and I can just get up and go whenever I want to. There's a certain amount of dignity that comes from being able to make that decision. Coffee chat group, we were talking about what are the ways people handle hall passes and letting students go to the restroom and things like that, because there's a safety aspect of, I need to know where you are, but then do I need to know actually the reason? Like, how granular do we need to get? Like, if a kid needs a drink, I want them to be able to get a drink. If a kid needs to go to the bathroom, I don't want them sitting there. It's a conversation that we have, but we don't. at the same time.
This is going to get really deep in some aspects because of how it all started. This conversation was about a year ago in the making, where we were talking about letting students out to class, specifically young ladies, identifying when they need to go to the restroom and not denying them access to a restroom. We were talking about how we didn't want to make a big deal about that process and how that process should be easily flowing. Now, from an administration standpoint, there are a lot of things going on in bathrooms. So let's talk about that first. The restroom and most middle school, I'm not even going to say most, some middle schools and high schools, there are drugs being brought into the bathrooms where students are using THC vapes, tobacco vapes. They're taking pills as much as Percocet, prescription drugs that they're bringing from their families or older cousins. There are drug deals going on in the bathrooms. And this is not just in America. This is going on in a lot of different places. And so we're being honest about it. This is the talk that we want to have about when do you deny access to the restroom? When don't you?
Yeah. And it's also very closely related to backpack policies and what are people able to carry. This is the bag that I would carry when I was a teacher, needed to go from my classroom to the restroom. I made it as small as I possibly could, but just like being able to hold in your hand what you need is something that as an adult, I probably should have felt okay to do. I wasn't comfortable doing it. How are we expecting our kids to do it too? But anything could be in here. And so it really is just, we need to be able to carry items, but sometimes those items aren't the things we want. It could be the drugs. It could be other pieces.
Yeah.
What do we do?
And so currently as an administrator of 14-year-olds, that's a lot of time when that process of a young lady's body is starting to she's starting to mature. And that's something that can be uneasy, especially if accidents happen. You never want to be the one to prevent that from happening. So I guess, Stephanie, I'm just going to ask you, give me a best practice, maybe one or two, for us to make the young ladies feel comfortable when they need to go? Or what are some classroom barriers we can remove to help that process go really smooth?
A lot of it is really just this rule that you can only go to the restroom during passing periods. We know the reality as educators, just as teachers, that's not really realistic. Those are busy times and you're in a hurry and you got to get from one place to another. And I think that's the school policy. Then maybe more time to that passing period, or just being a human about, okay, if they come in within 30 seconds, I'm not immediately looking to, is the mindset of the teacher that I'm looking to mark them tardy, or just I'm welcoming them into the class. And so I would often have the policy of I just need to know that you're safe. So if you're going to take a little bit longer, and you'll be here when you're here. So they drop their stuff off, run to the restroom, but the restrooms aren't always very close. There are ways that you can make it work if a school does have a policy where you're not able to allow students out of the classroom during class. Just being mindful that they might need to take a little bit longer, and it doesn't mean that they're doing bad things, and just being a human about it. I think in an ideal world, if a student needs to go to the restroom, they can go to the restroom. I don't have all the answers for that one. There are companies who sell great products in terms of, my school used one of them, where the student can request to, they put in their hall pass, and I as a teacher can set it. So it automatically, if it's going to, there's certain places I can say it's automatically going to approve it. It's up on their Chromebook, it's on their device. You really need to be one-to-one for this to work. The students can go, and it's timing it and connected to the office. So the office knows where people are. And that was something the students didn't have to raise their hand and say, hey, can I go to the bathroom? They just filled out a pass and they just went and did their thing and came back. But that also is a system that costs money, and people have to do it. Students have to fill it out and end their pass when they get back. Otherwise, another student can't go because it's limiting. And so there's its own set of issues that comes along with those things. But it's a matter of this reality that people are going to need to use the restroom, get a drink, whatever reason. And we can't always say it's only happening at these times. It's going to happen. It's going to be a need. And it's not something that's, oh no, what are we doing about it when it happens? It's a bodily function. We can plan for this. We are in 2024, and this is a conversation we are having. It's a little wild to me.
There were 4 other ladies, so I got trapped in that situation. And I sat and listened because I really needed some education on it. I never thought about it being a man thing. I never thought about it in the way in which you 4 ladies went on for 2 hours about this particular topic. And I was like, whoa, we got to...
It's representing that entire conversation.
But I learned a lot.
Yeah.
You also do consulting. You speak at conferences. You're a mainstay on social media with helping teachers. What advice can you give a new teacher, like you guys were schooling me that day? What advice could you give someone who wants to make his classroom an inclusive environment?
I think one of the biggest things, and I think this is not even like gender wise, but acknowledging that like men aren't going to be as comfortable having these conversations. Sometimes it's a matter of making sure that we're seen. I think back to me in middle school. It was very important for me to be seen. I knew I had female teachers I could go to. I didn't want to go to the nurse. So it's not automatic. A lot of times it's, oh yeah, there's products down in the nurse's office. But that makes it seem like there's something wrong with me. Like I go to the nurse's office when I'm sick. I go to the nurses when I'm on my way out of the building. There's a certain amount of dignity and cleanliness that needs to happen. We need to be able to make people whole. If you're comfortable having a needs station, we've seen different posts on social media as far as having like hand sanitizer, maybe it's mints, a little flossers, just like, because kids are going to get sticky even when there's nothing around. It just happens. And just being able to add, and they can be the cheap stuff. Just maybe a pack of little cheap pads that goes in the drawer. Nobody's going to actually pull those things out and play with them. Trust me, I've had those things in my classroom for years. If you let one student know that those pieces are there, just, hey, this is our needs station. Check it out sometime. It's near the door or by the pencil sharpener. And it's just a way that people can get what they need and go. Ideally, with the school supplies toilet paper, like that's already in the restroom. Nobody has to bring that. Some schools are providing products in the restrooms. I don't think anybody's ever going to steal the toilet paper from school because we know it's the cheapest stuff there is. And so I would actually make a habit of, I would go to Costco, Sam's Club, or bulk store, and I would get a really big box of something that I would actually be okay using. And it's like having something that's there, but financially it fell on me, but it was a decision I was making to support the students. It could be a matter of talking to the administration, talking to the nurse. If there's already products in the nurse's office, I get a pack of Band-Aids issued to me at the beginning of the year and then say to go back and get refills. Can it not be the same way with other supplies that students may need? Those are things that until someone's in that situation, they don't think about it. But I think the hardest hitting thing for me to realize is that I don't want to go to the nurse's office if I'm sick. Why should I have to go there? It is an option, but there are other options as well.
Yeah. I remember when I was telling this story, there was a young lady who needed to go home. She just did not want to talk to me. Once I found out what was going on, she was waiting around for the other female administrator, but she waited longer than what she had to. And when I found out why she was waiting, I felt very bad. I was like, man, I don't want to be that type of administrator. From an administration standpoint, how could I have been more approachable for young ladies in situations where they really need to go and do stuff? What could I preload to make sure that I'm a safe, understanding, caring about that situation?
That's the $1 million question, because a lot of that comes down to building relationships. It's a matter of having trust in whoever that student goes to. There was a particular day I had a student, it was her very first time, and she was not prepared. You would see her house from the front of the school, like neighborhood school, middle school. Her parents were both at work. When I asked her what she needed, she said, I just need to go home and change. I knew that she lived in that neighborhood, and in her mind, that's what she needed. And I could suggest everything in the world. My entire system was not set up for a student to just clearly advocate for herself, saying, I just need to go home and do this. The number of people I had to go through to get permission for her to do that, it took an hour to get that decision made. And at that point, I was still just, I might get in trouble for this. I might lose my job over this, because even though I had parent permission, the parent wasn't there to sign her out, but we had the parent on the phone and in an email saying, so thankfully the parent was available. But yes, like she can go over, and then trying to figure out how much time do you give? And it's like, that's not a typical situation, but I don't know. Maybe it is. Like this student was very empowered by her family to be able to ask. And when I asked her what she needed, she could say it. And I really wanted to be able to give that for her. But the number of people I had to go through, because of course it's during lunch. So where's the principal in this entire situation? And so I think some of it is like empowering. Again, like this is a situation that might come up. What is the front office? Like we know our front office staff runs that building. And so being able to know and have policies that are just like, if a parent has given permission, like, how are we doing that? Again, it comes down to some safety issues. There's potentially some bad actors in it, but maybe we can, there's a little bit of room for humanity. And
I think that's what we ended up. How much of a prick do you really want to be to anybody in that situation? And, you know, that young lady, I remember you telling that story back then, and I was thinking, that's great that she advocated for herself, but what about the ones who don't? And then I thought about, what if there have been young people who needed my assistance in just many different ways, maybe that way, maybe another way, who needed some assistance, but was just scared about how I was going to react to them, or maybe because they were shamed about it, they just didn't come. So that's what I remember about that conversation.
It's one of the hardest pieces because I know you and I know that anybody who went to you, I personally feel like I could go to you for pretty much anything, right? Boundary, like it's a big part of building the relationship, but what becomes that entire environment is if a teacher feels like, how would it have been if I immediately knew there's no way my principal is going to let this happen? And it was entirely possible at any part of that for someone to say the nurse has extra clothes. But then what are we saying by that? Because now this student is wearing clothes that aren't hers, that don't fit her. The students need to be in the classroom. They need to be learning. But she was able to go home and make herself as right as possible. And she had an amazing rest of the day. Great. And the email that I got from her mom the next day was just like, because as a mom, she wanted to be there for her daughter and be able to have a conversation, and she wasn't able to do that. We are taking care of people's children. That's something we don't get a second chance at.
You know, realistically, we're talking about the culture of a school and being approachable and the social emotional needs of students. It's one thing to say that you are a social emotional guru, but I think getting the little things right on stuff like this and looking to see, especially that's why I'm being reflective on myself as an administrator. I can't walk around all day with a mean face because I may be turning away or missing the opportunity to connect with a student and help them and whatever that they may be going through. And that's what I got from this story, looking at that social emotional connection and building relationships with parents. A young lady remembers her first time. My daughter does. My wife does. I would think that most young ladies remember where it happened and what was going on.
It's unfortunately traumatic. It's like a core memory unlocked kind of situation. You distance yourself from it, but you will always remember it.
You always remember. And I would hate for it to be a negative experience in school. And what's sad about it, to be the one who has multiple negative experiences with people in those situations.
And that's where it comes in that we have menstruators who could be missing 4 consecutive days of school. If they aren't able to take care of their needs at school, then it becomes a stay at home and get through this. The learning is very much impacted. When you look at that over the course of a school year, over a lifetime in school, girls could miss up to 4 consecutive days of school every month because their periods, meaning they missed 10 to 20% of school time, which seriously impacted their achievement. It's a matter of, if I don't feel safe, like dealing with, if it's just too much at school, I'm not going to do it. There's also pain involved. I got migraines very badly. I would miss an entire week of school at a time. And I was the kind of student who was going to be motivated to continue doing the work. I was gifted, not identified as gifted, so I could just do a week's worth of work in an hour anyway, but not everybody is that. Yeah. But attendance was an issue. If attendance policies were like, I would have had a truancy officer showing up at my door. I like to think I turned into a successful person. Going through middle school and high school, I would miss a week of school a month. And it was because of health issues that were outside of my control. I was supported in that. But the office ladies looked at me like I would still get mean looks if I came in an hour late. Instead of welcoming me in, there's a certain part where when you miss school, you start to become this like butt of a joke somewhere where you get these nicknames. It's this overall culture of school having to do with taking care of ourselves that goes far beyond the issue we've been discussing today. So there's a lot of layers that go into it. But if we can take care of them when we're at school, then we'll take care of them when they're at school.
It's something that's on the rise that I really want to bring up according to ChatGTP. You can't trust 100% of it, but
let's track it down.
Yeah, but PCOS is something that we normally didn't have to deal with in a high school setting, but that is a really serious thing that is going on. And for those of you who are not aware, it's polycystic ovary syndrome, disorder that affects women of the reproductive age, including teenagers. And the prevalence of PCOS among teenagers can vary depending on the population. And that's another thing, depending on the population. And let me give you a quick hint. Most people who live in Title I schools or low impoverished neighborhoods, those numbers will be increased. Estimates suggest that PCOS affects between 5 and 10% of adolescent girls globally. And that is a very heavy cycle for these young ladies.
And that's not even getting into what the treatments are for that. Like we didn't even get into, and can a student carry ibuprofen at school?
Yeah.
Again, it's a thing you go to the nurse to, you can get, but like you're going to ration you, trust me. As an adult, I was rationed. They're like, you're taking how much of that? My last full year in the classroom, I ended up having to have surgeries. I don't have cycles anymore, but it was 120 days solid. It's normal for young women as they're starting out to have a very inconsistent cycle. And so some of them it might be a day and then maybe 3 months later, Like there isn't any level of predictability to it. So in a way, I was like, oh, okay, at least this is still going. I know, whatever. There were health issues. It's not a normal thing. Like you see a doctor and you go through it. There's also stages that you have to go through for all of that. And insurance is a whole thing. It's not a matter of just, oh, it's a thing that's marked on the calendar and I'm prepared for this. There isn't a consistent schedule and it takes often longer for cycles to level out. And that is sometimes influenced by genetics, but also just like stress and involvement in sports activities, just how physically active you are. There are so many different, but there's a very wide range of normal that exists. My case was a very severe one that needed medical intervention. But the fact that I got to be almost 40 years old and was still having to deal with society not understanding that when I said I'm in pain, this is not normal. And so being able to...
I'm not laughing at you.
At this point, and so far, it's ridiculous. But the fact that I was showing up for work every single day, killing my liver to be able to do, and I was an adult struggling with that as a system. I needed to take off work to have surgery. And we still run into these other things. So it's a matter of the school is a place where we can start to normalize some of this, because where do students go after that? They go into the world, and we've already taught them what some of the expectations are.
No, it makes sense because they grow up to become teachers. And it's not, especially if you have something like polycystic ovarian syndrome, it's something that you're going to be living with that for a little bit. Having to teach your class, do so many different things, the rigors that are on teachers and the amount of stress that's on teachers as well. There are women who are struggling with that. And as an administrator, I'm going to be honest with you, and I surely hate to do that. That's never at the forefront of my mind on those type of things. That's something I need to grow on.
Yeah. And I appreciate you being willing and open to have the conversation and wanting to improve yourself. I don't think anybody's expecting that's the thing that you think about when you wake up in the morning. So there's this, I tend to turn into a justice warrior on pretty much everything that happened to me. It just goes back to this whole thing of what the very improperly attributed Maya Angelou quote, that's when you know better, you do better. And just being a person who is open to learning in the ways that we can help other people and ourselves have a better experience. That's enough.
Stephanie, that's about the time for our show. And I appreciate you being the spokesperson to speak up out of the group. I'm going to get them all in there. I'm going to say, now y'all say what y'all said about a year ago.
It's an important topic. And I think the more we have the conversation, the better things will be.
Most definitely. Tell our listener audience where they can find you on social media. Also, to give us anything you're doing, any books or anything you're going to be presenting at.
And I don't do social media much these days. Each of my dogs has a social media on Instagram. And even then, I'm not really posting too much there. But on Twitter, I know it's not Twitter anymore, but we'll call it that.
All right.
Yeah.
We're old school. We're going to call it that.
And my Instagram for my favorite dog is Lab Named Sailor. And he is adorable.
Are you presenting anywhere?
I don't have any active ones right now, but ISTE just dropped theirs, and ASTE, the Alaska technology. A friend of ours has posted about that, so I'm thinking about putting in for it.
I'm thinking about putting in for it too. I've never been to Alaska. I might want to go and visit.
Oh, it is beautiful, especially in February. But yes, I've been there in a winter and in a summer, and it is absolutely delightful.
Thank you for coming on the show, and I really appreciate talking with you, Stephanie, and hopefully you'll come back.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Have a great day.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Flipboard EDU podcast. We had an insightful conversation with our guest, Stephanie Filardo, exploring the nuances of education, social emotional wellness, and the importance of creating a supportive environment for both students and educators. A huge thank you to Stephanie for sharing her experiences and to all our listeners for joining us. If you want to connect with Stephanie, you can find her on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, also known as X. She's also considering some exciting speaking engagements, so stay tuned for more updates. Remember, every small change we make in our classrooms can have a profound impact. Until next time, keep inspiring and empowering those around you. Remember that every story on Flipboard is plus